"You're trespassing. Get away from that aircraft now." The security patrol at Tonopah Test Range caught 78-year-old Frank inside a restricted hangar after hours, apparently sleeping in the cockpit of an F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. The guards had received a silent alarm indicating unauthorized access to the facility that housed retired aircraft. They'd expected to find vandals or perhaps adventurous civilians who'd somehow breached security. Instead, they found an elderly man curled up uncomfortably in the cramped cockpit of the angular black aircraft, looking peaceful despite the sharp angles and limited space. The lead guard's hand moved toward his sidearm as his partner called for backup. This was a serious security breach at a highly classified facility. If you believe respect should extend to those who served in secret, comment honor below. Frank woke slowly as the guard's flashlights illuminated the cockpit. He blinked against the glare, disoriented for a moment, then remembered where he was and why. He'd driven from his home in Las Vegas 3 hours across the Nevada desert, arriving late in the evening. He hadn't planned to enter the hangar. He just wanted to stand outside to be near the aircraft one more time. But the hangar door had been partially open, and the F-117 had been right there, and the pull had been overwhelming. He'd climbed inside, intending to stay only a moment. Sitting in that familiar cockpit, surrounded by systems he'd once operated in Mortal Kombat, he'd fallen asleep. Now he was being treated as an intruder, which technically he was. "Sir, keep your hands visible. Climb out of the aircraft slowly. You're under arrest for trespassing on a military installation and unauthorized access to classified systems." Frank complied carefully, his aged body protesting the difficult egress from the tight cockpit. The F-117 wasn't designed for easy access, even for young pilots. For a 78-year-old, it required careful maneuvering. The guards watched tensely, uncertain if this elderly man represented an espionage threat or simply a confused civilian who'd wandered somewhere he absolutely shouldn't be. As Frank finally stood on the hangar floor, one guard moved to secure him while the other began documenting the security breach. This was going to require extensive reporting and investigation. "Sir, how did you gain access to this facility? Who are you working for? How did you bypass security?" The questions came rapidly, reflecting the serious nature of the incident. Frank raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Officers, I'm not working for anyone. My name is Frank Harrison. I'm a retired Air Force officer. I used to fly these aircraft. I know I shouldn't have come inside, but I just wanted to see her again. It's been 20 years since I flew and—" The guard cut him off. "Sir, the F-117 program was highly classified. Retired officer or not, you don't have authorization to be here. We're taking you into custody until we can verify your story and determine what charges you'll face." As they prepared to escort Frank out of the hangar, the younger guard's flashlight passed across the side of the F-117 fuselage. He paused, then looked more carefully at something stenciled on the aircraft just below the cockpit. "Sergeant, there's something written here. Looks like it's a name, painted on the aircraft." The senior guard moved closer to look. In white stenciled letters, partially faded but still legible, were the words, "Pilot Madge F. Harrison." The guards looked at the stenciling, then at Frank, then back at the aircraft. This says your name. Your name is on this aircraft." Frank nodded quietly. "Yes, officers. That's my bird. Tail number 784. I flew her for 42 combat missions during operations that officially never happened." The senior guard's aggression evaporated, replaced by confusion and a growing concern that they might have made a terrible mistake. "Sir, if your name is on this aircraft, then you actually flew stealth fighters. In combat," Frank confirmed with a simple nod. "First Gulf War, 1991. I was part of the 37th Tactical Fighter Wing. We flew missions into Iraq when the F-117 was still classified, when the public wasn't supposed to know these aircraft existed. The missions I flew are still partially classified. I conducted strikes on targets that, well, I can't discuss the specifics even now, but yes, I flew this specific aircraft. She was assigned to me for the entire deployment. The guards exchanged glances, no longer certain how to proceed. The senior guard made a decision. "Sir, I'm going to need to call my supervisor. This is above my level. Please wait here." Frank sat on an equipment crate while the guard made calls. The younger guard, now looking at Frank with a mixture of awe and uncertainty, tried to make conversation. "Sir, what was it like? Flying a stealth fighter that nobody knew about?" Frank smiled faintly. "Son, it was equal parts exhilarating and terrifying. We flew at night, deep into enemy territory, knowing that if anything went wrong, if we were shot down, the Air Force would deny our existence. Officially, the missions I flew didn't happen. The aircraft I flew didn't exist. For security reasons, we couldn't tell our families where we were going or what we were doing. We just disappeared for months at a time, conducted operations that changed the course of the war, and came back to silence. No acknowledgement, no recognition, just the knowledge that we'd done our job." Within 20 minutes, the hangar was filled with people. The base security chief, a full colonel, had arrived personally. Behind him was the base commander, a brigadier general who'd been pulled from a dinner event. Behind them were several civilians in suits who Frank recognized as likely intelligence officers or program security personnel. The general approached Frank with an expression mixing concern, curiosity, and respect. "Major Harrison, I'm General Watkins, base commander. Sir, can you explain what you're doing here, how you accessed this facility?" Frank told the simple truth. "General, I just wanted to see my aircraft one more time. I'm getting old. My health isn't great. I wanted to sit in her cockpit one last time before I'm unable to make the trip anymore. I know I shouldn't have entered without authorization, but the door was open and I couldn't resist. I apologize for the security breach." The general studied Frank carefully, then turned to one of the civilians. "Can you verify his identity and clearance history?" The civilian pulled out a tablet, accessed databases, and after several minutes of checking, nodded. "Sir, Major Frank Harrison, retired 2004. 32 years of service. F-117 pilot from program inception through retirement. Security clearance is still valid at high levels because of his knowledge of classified systems. He's authorized access to information about the F-117 program. His combat record is extensive. 42 missions over Baghdad during operations that remain classified. He's legitimate." The general's demeanor changed completely. "Major Harrison, sir, first let me apologize for how you were treated. My security personnel were doing their job, but they should have verified before assuming threat." Frank waved off the apology. "General, they did exactly what they should have done. I was trespassing. They had every right to detain me." The general shook his head. "Sir, with respect, you weren't trespassing. You were coming home. This aircraft is yours. Your name is still stenciled on her fuselage. You flew her in combat missions that helped win a war. You have more right to be here than anyone." He turned to his security chief. "Colonel, I want this man issued permanent access authorization to this facility. Major Harrison can visit his aircraft whenever he wants, for as long as he's able. Is that clear?" The security chief nodded, already making notes. "Yes, sir. I'll process the authorization immediately." But the general wasn't finished. "Major Harrison, can I ask why you didn't simply contact us? If you'd called ahead, we would have arranged proper access, given you a full tour, honored your service appropriately." Frank looked embarrassed. "General, I didn't think anyone would remember or care. The F-117 program was retired years ago. I'm just an old pilot who flew a long time ago. I didn't want to be that veteran demanding special treatment because of past service. I just wanted a quiet moment with the aircraft I loved." The general's response was firm and emotional. "Sir, not remember. Not care. You flew missions that changed modern warfare. You operated aircraft so revolutionary that their existence reshaped how nations think about air defense. You risked your life flying deep into enemy territory with no support, knowing that capture meant denial and abandonment. How could we not remember? How could we not care? The general made another decision. Sir, tomorrow morning, we're holding a proper ceremony. I'm inviting active duty stealth pilots from the F-22 and F-35 communities. They need to meet you. They need to hear your stories. They need to understand the foundation their missions are built upon. You're a living link to the beginning of stealth operations. Your knowledge and experience are irreplaceable. Frank tried to object, uncomfortable with the attention, but the general was insistent. Sir, this isn't about glorifying the past. This is about preserving knowledge and honoring service that was never properly acknowledged. You flew missions that helped win a war, and the world never knew your name or your aircraft existed. That's the definition of quiet service. It deserves recognition. The ceremony the next morning drew over 300 attendees. Active duty stealth pilots, aircraft maintainers, program engineers, and retired veterans who'd served in the classified F-117 program gathered at the hangar. Frank was overwhelmed. He'd expected maybe a dozen people. Instead, he found himself addressing a crowd that included some of the Air Force's most elite aviators, all of whom wanted to hear from someone who'd pioneered stealth combat operations. Frank shared stories from the Gulf War, the tension before the first mission into heavily defended Baghdad, the surreal experience of flying an aircraft that enemy radar couldn't detect, the weight of responsibility knowing that mission success could save countless lives. He described the technical challenges of operating revolutionary technology in combat conditions, the teamwork required to maintain security while conducting operations, the emotional cost of serving in secret. But Frank's most important message transcended war stories. Gentlemen and ladies, you fly aircraft that are more capable than the F-117 ever was. Your training is better. Your support systems are superior. But don't forget that stealth operations began with a small group of pilots flying angular black jets into the most dangerous airspace in the world, operating technology so secret that we couldn't tell anyone what we did. We learned lessons about stealth operations through trial and error, sometimes at great cost. That knowledge informed every stealth platform that came after. Learn from that history. Honor the mission more than the technology. And understand that the greatest operations are often the ones nobody knows about. After his speech, pilots lined up to meet Frank and thank him for his service. Several were moved to tears hearing about the sacrifices made by the first generation of stealth pilots. A young F-35 pilot confessed, "Sir, I thought I understood stealth operations. But hearing you describe flying with no support, no rescue option, into the most heavily defended airspace in the world, with technology that was brand new and untested in combat, that's a level of courage and professionalism I hadn't fully appreciated." Frank's response was characteristic. "Son, we did what the mission required. Same as you do now. The technology was different, but the dedication is the same. You'd have done exactly what we did if you'd been in our position." The Air Force designated F-117 aircraft 784, Frank's Bird, as a permanent memorial to the classified operations conducted by the 37th Tactical Fighter Wing. A plaque installed near the aircraft explained that this specific F-117 had conducted 42 combat missions during operations that helped define modern stealth warfare, piloted by Major Frank Harrison and others. Frank's name remained stenciled on the fuselage, a permanent reminder that technology is operated by people, that aircraft become meaningful through the missions they fly and the pilots who fly them. The aircraft was moved to a new location within the facility, displayed prominently with lighting that allowed visitors to appreciate its unique design. Frank was granted lifetime access, not just to Tonopah, but to several Air Force facilities that housed F-117s and other stealth aircraft. He became an informal historian and mentor, visiting bases to speak with young stealth pilots, sharing knowledge about the early days of stealth operations, preserving stories that would otherwise be lost. The security guards who'd initially detained him became friends, apologizing repeatedly for not recognizing him. Frank always responded the same way. "You did your job correctly." Don't apologize for protecting security. Just remember that sometimes the people who seem out of place might actually belong there more than anyone. Years later, when Frank finally passed away at 84, the Air Force held a memorial service at Nellis Air Force Base. F-117s were long retired, but the stealth pilot community remained strong, flying F-22s and F-35s. Representatives from those communities attended Frank's service, honoring someone who'd pioneered the mission they now executed. The eulogy included the story of how Frank had been found sleeping in his old aircraft's cockpit, how he'd been arrested for trespassing in a hangar where his name was literally painted on the walls. Frank Harrison never sought recognition, the speaker said. He flew classified missions that he couldn't discuss, operated aircraft that officially didn't exist, and served his nation in ways that most people will never know about. When found in his cockpit one last time, he apologized for trespassing. He didn't understand that you can't trespass in a place that's rightfully yours. That aircraft belonged to him, that mission belonged to him, that history belonged to him, and his legacy belongs to every stealth pilot who flies today. The F-117 that bears Frank's name still sits in that hangar at Tonopah. Stealth pilots visiting the facility always stop to see it, to read the plaque, to understand the foundation their operations are built upon. The security, guards who work there know Frank's story. They share it with every new guard who rotates through, teaching the lesson that Frank inadvertently taught them. Never assume someone doesn't belong until you've verified who they are. Never dismiss elderly visitors as irrelevant, and never forget that the greatest warriors often operate in silence and serve without recognition. Frank wanted one quiet moment with his aircraft. Instead, he ensured that stealth pilots for generations would remember the classified warriors who pioneered their mission, that age brings wisdom worth preserving, and that coming home, even to a place you served decades ago, is a right earned through service. If you believe that service deserves recognition, even when it was conducted in secret, that veterans have a right to honor the missions and aircraft they loved, and that we should preserve the stories of those who served in classified roles that most people will never know about, subscribe to this channel. We share stories of quiet warriors, of missions that officially never happened, of service that earned no public acknowledgement but changed history. Share Frank's story with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes often operate in silence. Comment about times when you discovered that someone's past service was far more significant than anyone realized. These stories honor those who served in secret, who flew missions the world never knew about, and who remind us that the greatest contributions are often the ones nobody sees,